So, it turns out that Shohei Ohtani is good at baseball.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, how could I have a lower third right there where I'm called Sully? I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and I'm now in my fifth season as a host here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. By the way, I haven't had any bites yet on the last trivia question, so I'll ask it again. When was the only time a postseason series ended on an RBI single from the visiting team? Doesn't seem like that's possible. A walk-off hit, how can that be for the visiting team? A postseason series ended with an RBI single from the visiting team. Tell me what event I'm talking about. It happened. It's not an obscure event. So, by the way, another piece of business to bring up. If you please listen to some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, especially this is like Mardi Gras for podcast hosts, especially not just for the contending teams, but this is the time for teams that aren't contending because lots of trades are bouncing around and you have teams that are out of contention who are building for 2024 and beyond. And so it's very interesting to hear some of those shows. And I had a wonderful time. I hosted 4 out of 5 shows this week on Locked On Rockies. And check out those shows. They're available. If you go to the YouTube channel, check out Locked On Rockies. Today, on Friday, the 28th of July, when this one's dropping, a completely different show, not 1 second from this particular show appears on that one, where I had the wonderful honor of interviewing Thomas Harding, who is a terrific writer for MLB.com, where he covers the Rockies. We had a terrific conversation where we talked about the present Rockies, some of the trades, why they've been playing well after the All-Star break. We had some conversations about the couple of times where Major League franchises almost moved to Denver. The A's almost moved there. The Pirates almost moved there. And talk a little bit about relieving pressure of a fan base when you have a championship team. The Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl a few years ago. The Avalanche won last year. The Nuggets won this year. So the Rockies are the only Denver-based franchise of the 4 major ones to not win. So it was a fun conversation. Go check out Locked On Rockies. I had someone bring up something on my on the YouTube page. One of the comments, and I want to address it because I'm going to sound, I swear I'm not being snarky. But there was someone had brought up, I lost the comment. Someone brought up that I said that a New York team had not won a major New York team. If you take the NBA, the WNBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, the NFL, all those sports haven't had a championship in New York in over a decade. The Giants were the last one to do it in the Super Bowl in 2012. And someone pointed out that the Major League Soccer won a championship in New York. I'm not going to take anything away from how hard the players on there worked, but the fact of the matter is, if that's where we're going to be looking for a championship, I don't remember a parade down the Canyon of Heroes. I don't know a lot of people who live and die by the New York MLS team. And also, if you are the best player on the New York MLS team and you got offered to play in AC Milan, Real Madrid, Manchester United, where the big money is, you're off to see the Wizard. It's a minor league. Soccer in America is a minor league. It is. The best basketball players in the world play in the NBA. The best baseball players in the world play for Major League Baseball. The best hockey players in the world play for the NHL, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is not where the best soccer players in the world. But hey, good for them. And I'm sure Yankee, Met, Nick, Net, Giant, Jet, Ranger, Islander, and Devil fans are all relieved that they got the Major League Soccer title to reduce the stress there. Please write your angry tweets at me. Hey, here's the deal. The other day, I got the Thursday show, or the show that I wanted to drop for Thursday morning. I recorded in the middle of the afternoon on Wednesday because I was tired. I worked very hard. I didn't get a lot of sleep, and there was a bunch of stuff that already had a bunch of games that had already taken place in the AL Central and the NL Central, and I decided to do the podcast about the Central and how those two divisions are at a crossroad. And I did that thinking, do you know what? We're not going to have a major story probably, so let me do this, and then that'll be the show that everyone will listen to on Thursday. So naturally, we had a big baseball story take place on Thursday, and I'm actually kind of glad I didn't talk about it then, because now I can talk about the whole thing. We are living in a universe that is run by Shohei Ohtani. That's really all there is to it. And on Wednesday, the Angels announced that they were taking Shohei Ohtani off the trade market. They were not going to trade him. And I thought of two words the minute I heard that. Two words. Now, I'm not going to tell you what they were, but their initials were BS. That's what I thought. I thought this was just a tactic to say, oh, we're not going to trade him. No. Because, that looks better if you're in a position to try to make a deal than saying, oh, my God, just please give us anything for him. So I thought it was a bargaining tactic. And then the Angels showed they weren't bluffing. They made a deal. They made a deal for a pitcher that everybody in their cow wanted, which was Lucas Giolito. And they also picked up Reynaldo Lopez. One thing that the Angels needed was depth in their pitching staff. Suddenly they picked up a pretty good starting pitcher and a decent reliever. Now, it wound up costing them Edgar Cuero. Is that how you pronounce his name? I'm just now saying his name for the first time. He is one of the best catching prospects in all of baseball. And he's a switch hitter. He's in Double-A. He looks like he could be, a really solid major league catcher. Also included in the trade was a minor league starting pitcher by the name of Kai Bush, who is, I just had his info right in front of me here. Forgive me. I'm not part of the Kai Bush fan club, but he is another Double-A pitcher. Not having the best year, but has a lot of great stuff. He's playing for Rocket City, and now he's in the White Sox organization. Now, this is big. This is not an insignificant move because, let's first and foremost, I read some people saying this was an overpay, that Giolito is a fine pitcher, but Edgar Cuero could be a legitimate potential all-star that they gave up for a potential rental with Lucas Giolito. First and foremost, pump the brakes, everybody. Pump the brakes in talking about this trade in a vacuum. You can't just look at this trade based upon, look at his stats here, look at his stats here. He's worth this, he's worth that. There's a bigger picture going on here. The Angels want to keep Ohtani. And the only way they can realistically keep Ohtani is if they win this year. Because he's not going to sign before he hits free agency. So if he could be on a team that gets to the playoffs and maybe makes a little bit of a run in October, just maybe, Ohtani will say, all right, I'll stick around. And so they have to make a deal. And if it costs them a catcher who we don't know, there are a lot of can't-miss prospects who miss. I keep bringing up the Matt Laportas of the world, the Brett Wallaces of the world, the Kyle Drabeks of the world, the Montero. Hey, remember when Jesus Montero was going to be the second coming of Miguel Cabrera? There are a lot of prospects who flop. And so if you have the chance to bring in a major leaguer for a prospect when you have a chance to win now, well, you do that. But there's a bigger picture going on here. It's not just for Giolito. It's to appease Ohtani. Because the Angels are looking around going like, oh my God, we should have done this earlier. Yeah, but you can't be Superman and spin the world backwards and fix things. You can only deal with the here and now. And if you're not going to trade him and you're not going to be pounding the Orioles' phones like, give us Jackson Holiday, then you have to fix the team now. And if it costs you a catcher down the way to potentially court Shohei Ohtani, then you got to do it. The Angels took probably one look at their spreadsheet they keep of the money coming in and out and said, oh, we make a lot of money off of Ohtani, don't we? Those ads for the Japanese corporations that all pop up on the virtual green screens behind home plate every time Ohtani comes up. Oh, yeah. I'm going to guarantee you this. Those companies aren't putting those up for Edgar Cuero. So this is not just a normal trade that you look on and say, I hope they got the right deal for this. I hope they got the right deal for that. No, there's something bigger going on here. Catching prospect is worth filling in some gaps. It's still a Hail Mary pass. I still think Shohei Ohtani is going to go out into free agency, and the Giants, the Mets, the Cubs, I don't think the Yankees, the LA Dodgers, possibly the Mariners, who are look a little upset that they're not having a great year this year, and there's always going to be some weird team we're not thinking about. Hey, the Brewers signed him. But in order for the Angels to do anything and get anything resembling pulling his heartstrings, they had to make a move right now. And I got news for you. That's worth a catching prospect, no matter how good his upside is. Hey, let's talk a little bit about, let's say it with me, eBay Motors. Where's the banner? There it is, eBay Motors. All right, now look at. For a championship team, it's about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark so you know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only, and of course, exclusions apply. All right, get rid of that. Now look at, the interesting thing was when the Angels made the move to say, we're not trading Ohtani, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to try to win right now. It's funny that the day that happened, the Angels didn't play. They were rained out in Detroit. So the very next day, the Angels, which was, I'm recording this in the evening of the 27th. So during the afternoon of the 27th, the Angels took on the Tigers in a doubleheader. And if you're listening to this, chances are you already know what happened. But what happened was Shohei Ohtani had one of the single greatest days an individual player has ever had in the history of baseball. The only day that I think comes close happened with Rick Wise when he pitched for the Phillies. It was either 71 or 72. It must have been 71. When Rick Wise threw a no-hitter and hit 2 home runs in the same game. Ohtani came pretty darn close. On the mound in game 1, he threw a complete game 1 hitter. 1 hit. Nobody got past second base the whole day. A complete game. You don't see those anymore. And look, if you like to look at win-loss records, I'm not a big fan of it, but his win-loss record is 9-5. His ERA is 3.43. He's an elite pitcher, and he threw a complete game shutout. Up comes game 2 of the doubleheader, and Ohtani hits 2 home runs. In fact, they took him out because his back was tightening up. And people are like, oh, God, why is his back tightening up? I don't know. Maybe he threw a complete game shutout and then had to play another game. He's like, yeah, no, I got a little cramp here. Go sit in the whirlpool. Go sit in the whirlpool. But the day he had was absolutely tremendous. And here's the interesting thing. The Angels are suddenly on a 4-game winning streak. The Angels are on the outside looking in of the wild card chase, but it's not an insurmountable battle. In fact, the Angels are about to start a series with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays are the 3rd wild card team. If the Angels sweep the Blue Jays, which is a possibility, if the Angels sweep the Blue Jays, remember they swept the Yankees. Let me say it again. If the Angels sweep the Blue Jays, the Angels will tie the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays are currently the 3rd wildcard team. Now, that doesn't guarantee that the Angels will be in because the Yankees and the Red Sox are in between the Angels and the Blue Jays. But the Angels are only a half a game behind the Yankees. And the Yankees are about to play Baltimore. And the Yankees are 8-1 against teams that play in Oakland and Kansas City. And they are a game below 500 against everybody else. And they're about to play the Baltimore Orioles. We're probably a little mad that they lost a couple of dumb games to the Philadelphia Phillies. The Red Sox are on a roll, winning the last 4 games, including stunningly winning 2 out of 2 against the Atlanta Braves. They're going to be playing San Francisco. And guess who's going to that game on Saturday? I got a hint. It's me. But the Angels have a way to tie Toronto. Win all the games. Win all the games and you're in. Or at least chip away. And with that, this whole notion of, hey, let's just go for it this year and see what happens. They should have done more leading up to this. They should have built up their farm. They should have developed better pitchers. They should have traded for better. They should have been able to, other teams are able to acquire pitchers. The Giants signed a bunch of pitchers a few years ago. The Blue Jays signed a bunch of pitchers. People sign pitchers. Why none of them go through freaking Anaheim is completely beyond me. But they're trying. They're trying. By the way, this is a weird day for baseball, by the way, because no team that played today is currently a playoff team. The Angels aren't currently a playoff team. The Tigers aren't. The Mets won a 2-1 game, which had a big rain delay in that, to the Nationals. The Mets are actually sellers. They trade Robertson to Miami. And do you know what? People are getting on the Mets because they have that huge payroll. And now they've sold Robertson off, and they're probably going to trade away Verlander and maybe even Scherzer. I think that's smart. Sometimes stubbornness and the sunk cost fallacy hurts teams. Say, hey, look, if we're not going to win this year, then let's dump some of our older salaries and, I don't know, make some room for Ohtani. The Cubs and the Cardinals, yeah, that game would have been huge if it was 2015. Steele pitched a terrific game. But again, these games are just shown for potential trades going around. Nolan Arenado might be dealt to the Dodgers, by the way. That they have to make changes in the Cardinals front office. The man traded away at least one Cy Young Award winner, possibly an MVP candidate, but maybe another Cy Young Award winner, and they're this bad. And they're going to have to sell off the Arenados and maybe the Goldschmidts and certainly a bunch of their other pitchers. They're going to have to sell them off. You need a change in direction in the Cardinals front office. The Guardians and the White Sox, of course, they just made that big deal. They're probably going to trade away Lance Lynn. They may trade away Tim Anderson. They may trade away Dylan Cease. The Guardians traded away their starting shortstop, Rosario, to the Dodgers, but that's because they have a lot of depth in their infield, and they're just trying to build other parts of it. It's funny that the Guardians are kind of sellers right now, and they're only a game and a half out of first place in July. That's kind of weird, but this is going to be a weird trade deadline. This is going to be a weird trade deadline because you're going to see some teams that are in contention trade away some of their players to make room for other people. It's just going to be a game of Jenga. So you're going to see Cleveland be a contender and trade away players. You're going to see the Red Sox be a contender and trade away players. You may even see the Yankees be a contender and trade away some of their bullpen arms because it might be the smart thing to do in the long run. I don't know if the Yankees will or not, but there you go. But you saw there was a couple other moves that were made. There was a move where the Carlos Santana was dealt to the Milwaukee Brewers, who need who needed that extra bat. And I mentioned that David Robertson was acquired by the Miami Marlins, who have been making they've been making a couple of different trades here. But this was they've been adding to their bullpen, and Dylan Floro was shipped off to Minnesota for Jorge Lopez. So they brought in Lopez and they brought in Robertson. Floro's not pitched very well. Maybe a good change of scenery is what they need. And the Giants brought up Marco Luciano, who's not a trade, but he's one of their best prospects. Therefore, standing by my thought, play all your best players. You'll have a chance to do it. At least you'll have a chance to win. So, look at Ohtani is sticking around at least for the end of the year. He's showing he's pretty good. And this is going to be a completely unpredictable trade season because contenders are going to be selling. Because sometimes if you have the right player to fill in a hole from the farm, why not trade from a strength? Interesting thing with the Angels having to make all these moves, and they're probably not done yet. Along the way, Jared Walsh kind of was the odd man out. Jared Walsh was designated for assignment, and they designated him for assignment, and then they sent Ben Joyce to the 60-day injured list, which allowed them to free up another roster spot as they're making all these moves in the pitching staff. I take a look at teams that desperately need a bat, desperately need a thumper, and I can't help but wonder if Jared Walsh is someone who could use a change of scenery, and he just got a big old slice of humble pie. In 2020, the COVID year, Jared Walsh was a Rookie of the Year candidate, but it's tough to judge anything in 2020 because it was only a 60-game season. He only played 32 games. But in 2021, Jared Walsh made the All-Star team. He wound up hitting 29 home runs. If you like RBIs, he got 98 of them. He had a decent OPS and 850. He had a solid all-around season as a 27-year-old first baseman, DH, outfielder. You could do worse than him. In fact, it was his emergence that allowed for Albert Pujols to be expendable in Anaheim. And last year, he did not have a very good year. His home run total was almost cut exactly in half, 29 to 15. His RBI total went from 98 to 44. His batting average went from 277 to 215. His OPS dropped 200 points. And this year, he's been a minor leaguer. I mean, his batting average is 119. His OPS is 467. He's hit one home run this year. He has been the odd man out. But, look if you're a team that needs a slugger, and there was someone who was an all-star just 2 years ago that you can get for nothing, why wouldn't you take a shot on him? Why wouldn't you say, hey, do you want to save face? Do you want to dust yourself off from the humiliation of being designated for assignment a mere 18 months after being an all-star, or 24 months after being in an 24 months ago was July 2022. Is that right? No, 2021. It's late. Jared Walsh was being introduced as an all-star, tipping his hat. Today, he got his pink slip. If you're a team who needs a big thumper, take a flyer on him. You're not asking him to be an all-star for a full year. You're saying a guy who 2 years ago was an all-star, can you give me 2 decent months? Can you prove to the world you're a major leaguer and cash in after this year? Just worth thinking about. And again, the danger for me is if you're going to pat yourself on the back for recording a podcast ahead of time and you can get a good night's sleep, that's exactly the day that Shohei Ohtani is going to be kept by the Angels and then make a deal that no one expected. It's the 28th day of July, so that trade deadline is right around the corner, and we've got a full slate of games, a full weekend of games going on, and a lot of these teams are going to be putting some of their best players to be traded on display over this weekend. So check it all out. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great weekend of baseball, including me taking a trip to the ballpark as I'm going to see the Red Sox play in McCovey Cove. So go to Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And do check out Lock On Rockies, where you can check out some of my additional shows in case this isn't enough for you. So, talking about Shohei Ohtani, who turns out to be pretty good. Talking about the Mets, who are making maybe the right decision and being brave to say, yeah, it did work out this year. So let's not throw good money after bad. And taking a look at maybe give a guy a chance. You're only asking for 2 decent months. This has been Locked On MLB for the 28th day of July, 2023. Easy for you to say, God, it's late. I'm going to go to bed. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Good night. Call me Sully.